We are live. How do you like me now,
Oh,
Patrick?
wow, look
How
at that.
do you like me now?
How long did that take? Has that been
All
been doing all day?
damn day. No, I made the video. Maybe the video, you know, I had to find all like the stock animations and stuff, so maybe I worked a few hours on that. But I spent most of today redoing the audio again, going back to lav mics.
I saw that I had to mount this bad boy again.
Yeah, I think it's just the best option for small, tight rooms like this.
Now, we should have the best audio ever because
Yes.
we are back to the lavs, but we don't have the
Any
noise
hum.
interference.
Yeah, so the problem that we had before was we had like the receiving end plugged in so that we didn't have to deal with charging and batteries and stuff, and plugging those in caused a hum, and then plugging both in doubled that hum. So we're going back to the basics now, but I feel like this should be the absolute best audio we've ever had, and we had that incredible intro to the show.
We still have the mics hanging above us, so.
Yeah, I didn't want to touch these yet just in case we needed to do some other tests, but yeah.
All right, should we go to the numbers? We try to read the numbers every day, but sometimes we don't. I don't
we
even
can
know
go to
what's
the
going
numbers
on.
here.
Have we broken 5 million yet?
Very close. Goodness, 4.98 million cases around the world, 324,000 deaths. Let's check out the U.S. here. Let me make sure this is up to date. Yeah, 1.5 million cases, 93,000 deaths. And let's just look at the chart real quick. Definitely look like we're on the way down in terms of daily new cases, as you would expect from being locked down for 2 months. And deaths were on the way down as well, but not as much as you would think.
Go up to the curves, because these are, you know, the curve should really flatten if we're truly going down, right?
I mean, it's certainly flattened, but we're, you know, it's just tapering off. You look how quickly it went up and then how slowly it tapers off on the other side. So, don't know.
Have you decided to go on a hydroxychloroquine? Have you sent messages to your doctor friends?
No, I have not.
Because you're going to need that if you're going to travel to Disney, right?
Maybe so. Well, I've learned a little bit more about hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah, what have you learned?
Well, I have learned, maybe I should just play the video here. Should we play the video of Pelosi calling Trump morbidly obese? That was definitely
We
my...
didn't have that one queued up, though, did we?
What do you mean?
Is there a video of that?
Yeah, I thought I put it in here. Pelosi calls Trump morbidly obese, number one.
Oh, okay.
You numbered it number one.
As far as the president is concerned, he's our president, and I would rather he not be taking something that has not been approved by the scientists, especially in his age group and in his, shall we say, weight group, what is morbidly obese, they say.
I have to say, her mask is quite the fashion statement there. It almost looks like just a normal scarf.
Oh, I thought that was a scarf.
No, I think that's her mask, right?
Okay, yeah, I guess you're right. So I do have to be fair to CNN. This clip is not from CNN. I found this really last minute on YouTube. Sorry about the volume. It's very low on YouTube. I think I was on CNN's website and I saw this clip. And at the end of the clip that they posted, they actually did the math. And they were like, based on Trump's weight of this and his height of this, technically he is not morbidly obese. He's just obese.
Well, I looked up obesity and saw just the images, you know, of the shadows, silhouettes of what people would look like. And I was like, morbidly obese is like, what is that show? Like, What About Hal? Or what's the one with like, it's not Cameron Diaz, but the girl, she gets all fat and everything.
Okay.
And it's like, well, you think of what morbidly obese looks like, and it's huge.
Are you sure about that? Because I thought morbidly obese was very attainable. I thought it was like 40 or 50 pounds overweight.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a few pounds overweight.
Dude, Trump's more than 50 pounds overweight.
Really?
Look at the picture you used as him playing tennis.
I mean, the picture I used may have been doctored a little bit.
Did you doctor it?
Maybe.
Oh, okay. So you're making the fake news.
The picture of him playing tennis is several years old, and I don't know if that's just an unflattering image or if
What are you saying, that he's lost weight since then?
I don't
or?
think he's that fat.
Okay, I don't know.
I mean, he's definitely overweight, but I don't know that he's that overweight. I mean, he wasn't morbidly obese when his doctor told him that he was in the finest shape of any president ever. Otherwise, that would be a check mark. You'd have to be like, look, you're morbidly obese. So he can't be that fat, but
But he could just be obese, and that wasn't on the checklist. Steve Robertson gave $20 super chat for the fabulous intro. Thank you so much, Steve. Steve is the most generous super chatter on planet Earth. He's in every video. He's always donating, so thank you, Steve.
well, Leonard, he said, damn. He gave us €2.
To the intro?
I assume it was one of the first super chats we had.
Nice.
Obese is 30 pounds overweight per the definition.
Dude, 30 pounds overweight? I would say, like, the majority of Americans are 30 pounds overweight. Trump is definitely 30 pounds overweight.
Yeah. Then I don't know what is the what's the next one? The next step, is it 50 pounds overweight?
Like, is there another word beyond morbidly obese? Is that what you're saying?
No, obesity is 30 pounds overweight.
Oh, okay.
So maybe 30 to 50 pounds is obesity, and then 50 pounds and more. I'm just making up 50. I don't know what the
Yeah, I
number
think
is.
it's based on your height.
It's like a BMI too, like a body mass index. But
Yeah. Mike Kidwell says the movie is Shallow Hal, Jack Black, and Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah, she was definitely morbidly obese in that movie. And 420 Tendies, nice. It says, love y'all and the show. Make tendies. Hashtag make tendies. Thank you for 20
we made tendies
tendies
yesterday. Today, I made a little tendies today. The market was up a little bit.
Well, you know, one of the few positions that I held in the stock market was my absolutely battered energy index funds.
Yeah? Who was that?
I just have Fidelity energy funds that I've had for a while, and I had lost like 60% of my money. And I think today they were up 9%. So I'm glad I didn't sell that. All right, let's get to the next clip here. I was speaking about learning a little bit more about hydroxychloroquine, thanks to Kaylee McKinney.
McNanny?
How do you say her name? McKinney?
I don't know.
I think
McNanny?
McKinney. I don't know. Trump's new hot spokeswoman.
Oh, you're going that far, huh?
I mean,
I was going to say intelligent.
yeah, she's
Educated.
She cannot be trapped in a question. It's quite entertaining to watch her because other people dodge questions. She is prepared for the question and will like twist it and make the person asking it look stupid. And she's done it again and again and again and again.
I like the Huckabee lady because she was just like, I'm not answering. You know, she just had this.
Oh, what happened to that girl?
She
Yeah,
just
she was
left.
tough too. She was over it. She couldn't
There's
handle
been
the
a
heat.
lot of these secretaries.
Oh my God. It's like the most ever.
Yeah.
Has to be the most ever.
Wasn't there a while where we had nobody?
Probably. I don't know. All right, watch this clip. This is Fox News asking her why Trump would come out and admit that he was taking this drug when he doesn't actually have COVID-19.
Good morning. So that made a lot of headlines yesterday. It was talked about on most or all of the channels yesterday. You know, usually it is something that you just keep between yourself and your doctor. We don't walk around talking about what drugs we're taking. Did the president just want to be transparent, or was it something he didn't think would be a big deal? Why did he decide to talk about it?
The president just wanted to be transparent about his personal health decision that he made in consultation with his doctor. And one of the things that I really want to get out there this morning that unfortunately there's a lot of misinformation about is, you know, first let me emphasize strongly that any use of hydroxychloroquine has to be in consultation with your doctor. You have to have a prescription. That's the way it must be done. That being said, I talked to the FDA commissioner this morning, Stephen Hahn. He said hydroxychloroquine has been approved for 3 other uses. We have a lot of information about the safety of this drug, though ultimately you make that decision with your doctor. So some of the misreporting on other networks, these apoplectic analyses of hydroxychloroquine ignore the fact that tens of millions of people around the world have used this drug for other purposes, including some people in my communications office who used it for malaria prophylaxis before traveling to other parts of the world.
A lot of big words in there at the end.
There was, once again, sorry about the volume. It's like
Prophylactic, is that the word? That's like a preventative. I think I was reading that there's, I think she just said this, millions of people in Europe have been taking this drug as a preventative measure. I don't know if it's just for COVID-19 or other illnesses
I think
years ago.
Malaria is what she said. She had friends taking it for. So yesterday when we saw Trump, admitting to taking this drug, it sounded extra ridiculous because I didn't think it was the type of drug that you could take for preventative measure. But apparently you can, and people do, and it's relatively common, not for coronavirus.
Yeah, have we heard that yet?
No. I haven't heard anyone say that they've taken it preventatively. But it's not quite as crazy as I thought it was yesterday for him to be taking it, but of course there's lots of theories that he's not actually taking it, and he just said that to like push his agenda or something. Do you have a theory on that?
I don't have a theory, but yeah, I don't know if he's actually on it, or if I read something online where people were saying like, could his staff just be lying to him and just giving him a placebo and being like, you're on it?
It's so ridiculous. But maybe, I don't know. It is weird that a doctor would be willing, like if no other doctor in the world is giving it like this, and then you choose to give it to the President of the United States as the first person to take it preventatively, it just seems crazy, but maybe other people are taking it and we just haven't heard about it yet, and I'm sure it'll come out if that's the case.
People are saying he's selling this stuff. I thought this drug was relatively inexpensive. And I've been reading that people are worried that Trump is somehow invested in the companies that make this. I think there's multiple companies, but I tried to look it up. There's one company in, I want to say France is the manufacturer of hydroxychloroquine. And I couldn't find that, I did find their stock ticker, and I looked it up, and it just felt like they hadn't done all that well. Now, maybe that's the reason he's trying to push it, is because he needs it to spike up. But you would think that it would be doing better than it's ever done if there was even a thought that this could be used as a treatment.
Right.
It's no Moderna, though.
No, it's definitely no Moderna. Did Moderna skyrocket again today?
Moderna's down 10% today.
Oh, nice.
Down 6% after hours.
Wow, you played it perfect.
So I will be buying it very soon, again.
Really? With just a
I think so.
10% difference?
16% if it holds. We'll see what it is tomorrow.
That just seems insignificant when it's gone up 300% in 2 months. 16% is nothing.
How do percentages work? When it falls down?
I always get
when
confused
it falls,
with that as well.
Isn't it more like a 16% correction from an all-time high? That's a pretty big gap.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I just feel like surely it would do this. I got burned on Zoom because Zoom just kept going up and up and up and up and up, and then some bad news came, or people just, a correction came, but it was some bad news. And then it bombed. I sold making 1% profit, and now Zoom's at an all-time high again. So I feel like there's probably some psychological game, and I don't know how to play that well, but yesterday I got it right.
All right, here's another video of Trump talking about his hydroxychloroquine.
Well, I've worked with doctors, and if you look at the one survey, the only bad survey, they were giving it to people that were in very bad shape. They were very old, almost dead. It was a Trump enemy statement. Now, if you look at some of the reports that came out from Italy, that came out from France, that came out from a lot of our frontline workers take it because it possibly, and I think it does, but people are going to have to make up their own mind. Plus, it doesn't hurt people. It's been out on the market for 60 or 65 years for malaria, lupus, and other things. I think it gives you an additional level of safety, but you can ask many doctors are in favor of it. Many frontline workers won't go there unless they have the hydroxy. And so, again, this is an individual decision to make, but it's had a great reputation. And if it was somebody else other than me, people would say, gee, isn't that smart? Pelosi is a sick woman. She's got a lot of problems, a lot of mental problems. We're dealing with people that have to get their act together for the good of the country. Okay, thank you very much.
She's got serious mental problems.
It's like the pot calling the kettle black. He's like, we have no time for this bickering and name calling.
I know. Now,
Does she have a nickname? Is it like Evil Pelosi or something.
Hey, what is her nickname?
She's got to have one.
Yeah, she has to have one. I don't know. Put it in the comments, guys. Then we've got another clip here. I promise today's video is about more than hydroxychloroquine, but let's play this one.
You are in a risky population here, and you are taking this as a preventative treatment to ward off the virus, or in a worst case scenario, you are dealing with the virus, and you are in this vulnerable population. It will kill you. I cannot stress enough. This will kill you.
Then Trump tweets,
Wow.
"It's no longer the same. We miss the great Roger Ailes." I guess he was the owner of Fox News. You have more anti-Trump people by far than ever before. Looking for a new outlet.
Wow. I actually saw that clip last night, and I was like, thank you that someone on Fox News can just,
Is that
speak the
irresponsible
truth.
of him to be taking hydroxychloroquine, and why do they care?
I commend him for coming out publicly and sharing with his people that he is taking this drug, that it is completely safe, and that doctors need to start prescribing
All right, I spoke a little too soon. They would post this, but let's go.
it immediately.
Here's your
Well,
boy.
I just have to say, it's very strange that someone's choice of medication would be seen as a political story. Do you think?
Since President Trump mentioned, what have you got to lose, hydroxychloroquine, for its possible benefits months ago, well, the mob...
Dude, I don't know if you guys can see this, but Hannity's face. Get on there.
Don't hit play. We don't want to get taken down.
I'm not going to hit play. He is doing the Donald Trump orange face.
Yeah.
Do you see this?
Where he's been to Florida.
No, dude, that is not normal. Like, it's the same. Look at his eyelids. You can see under his eyelids that it's white, normal flesh color, and you can see his neck is normal flesh color, and then it's neon orange face. Why would he do that?
Do you think he has to buy new white shirts much more often? Because it comes down a little bit to his neck.
I don't get it. Like, I've always wondered that with Trump. How does it not get on his white shirts? And people are like, oh, it's a spray tan. It's not like makeup. I don't know.
You've never used spray tan ever in your life?
No.
It will come off on white.
Days later?
I don't know how many days later, but I assume he has to put it on every so often.
But let's say it is spray tan. I've seen women with spray tan, and they can hit their eyelids.
Yeah, you would just stand there with your eyes closed.
Right. So what is it about these men with the orange faces that they have the white eyes?
Maybe he's too obese to fit into the spray tan booth.
Hannity looks like he's in good shape. All right, let's finish this.
The media, they have been waging what is an unhinged, nonstop, never-ending PR campaign against it.
When the president said, what have you got to lose? In a number of studies, those certainly vulnerable in the population have one thing to lose, their lives.
Well, well, well.
So you said, I'm glad someone is saying this, but we just said, and I think the press secretary said this too, like, there are millions of people around the world who have been using this for other treatments.
Yep.
And have been using it apparently for preventative treatments for certain things.
Yep.
So isn't it also a little false to, I mean, it's like going to the far extreme of saying, you idiot, if you take this, you will die. Because...
Is that what the dude said, or did he say if you are in the high-risk group,
yeah,
then it could kill you?
I don't know if he put, I didn't watch the full interview, but...
I thought that's what he said.
There's got to be high-risk people that also have lupus, though, right? But maybe they compound these drugs with other drugs to, like, keep blood pressure down, or I think it does stuff with your heart.
That's what I've heard, too. Yeah,
like heart
if you got a
attacks
bad
and stuff.
heart, then it could hit the heart.
Cardiac arrest or something.
Yeah. We got any super chats? Should I move on to the next video here?
No super chats at the moment.
All right. China locks down 100 million.
While the rest of China returns to something like normality, a lockdown's been imposed on the city of Jilin. 4.5 million people have been told to stay home, and public transport is at a standstill. Neighboring Shulan City was locked down on Monday. More than 20 infections have been identified in Jilin province since the beginning of the month, but experts say it isn't a second wave of disease.
Whenever new cases emerge, the monitoring system will detect and track the cases, and will curb the spread of the virus in no time.
In Wuhan, China's epicenter of the outbreak, the discovery of 6 new transmissions has spurred plans to test the entire city of 11 million people. District authorities have been told they have 10 days to complete testing, though details are still being discussed. Testing in some areas began this week. Analysts say the plan could cost up to $254 million and requires the rapid expansion of testing facilities. Wuhan's testing capacity reached 46,000 people per day last month. People who live there say they're not surprised a new cluster's been discovered.
So we know that the second wave is coming anyway. There's no way we can, prevent all the new infections from the 0-0, if you see what I mean. There's no 0-0, and we are actually shifting into a new normal.
The Chinese government has reported about 83,000 cases nationally, with more than 4,600 deaths since the virus broke out in December.
With just a week to go until China's National People's Congress, the biggest political gathering of the year, the government here is on high alert. The Communist Party wants to project an image of strength and victory over the virus, and these 2 new clusters threaten to compromise just that.
So in that video, that video talks about 4 million and 6 new outbreaks. Like, the numbers seem very small, but in other articles I've read, I just look for videos because it's better for this format, but Reuters had an article that's saying 10 million people in China, some of these big cities, are being shut down in fear of the outbreak again.
I mean, this is over 6 new people getting it?
I have to believe it's more than that. That's just what that article was, that broadcast was saying about one specific city in northeastern China. But I look at that and I think that's what the future of America is going to look like. We are going to have to probably walk around and, like, we just saw that, like, Mike Kelly drove in and got a test, which he should have a result for soon.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's told us that yet. But, he got to do it from his car. But I would imagine very soon, all Americans, once we have these tests, we're going to have to start testing people like, cattle. We're going to have to walk into these places and drive through all these places, and maybe that's like a normal part of our lives where every month we have to go get tested. We have to do the swab, and we have to give the blood or prick the hand.
Yeah.
And then as a few cases come back, 6 seems like not enough to really care.
But think about this just from an economical standpoint. Let's say China is on top of it as they are portraying themselves to be. Let's say they really are spending $250 million. Is that what it was, $250 million? Because 6 people caught it? Let's just say that's true. That means if they're willing to take that amount of measure for 6 people getting it,
yeah,
they cannot allow anyone to travel into their country.
Yeah.
How can their society function without letting any business people or any tourists into their country until there's a vaccine?
That's why I'm saying the number has to be higher than 6.
Unless they're really trying to eradicate it in Wuhan.
It just doesn't make sense, though. I think Wuhan's actually doing pretty well. This is a different part of the country.
Oh, that wasn't Wuhan?
No.
Oh, okay.
This is the northeast province. I can't say any of the names of any of these places, but I think the city they were talking about is another New York-sized city, 10 million people or something. It's a large, large city, but I just feel like the whole world has to eradicate this. Otherwise, what is the point? You're always going to have 6 people traveling in that have it at any given time. You know? It just feels like the numbers are so suppressed or not accounted for.
Yeah, there could literally be 6 people with it on a single plane that flies in. So,
or 1 person, and then 6 people have it immediately after that flight.
Exactly. So it's incredible the amount that they're willing to go to stop it, but it seems pointless to me. Unless they're like, we are literally willing to close borders for years then I guess it makes sense.
Yeah. Darren Hong is saying hydroxychloroquine patent has expired. Anyone can make it. Nervous Nancy. That's her nickname.
All right, next video. Block party in Florida.
Have you seen this?
No.
How much longer you want this to go on down here?
What in the world?
Is that traffic moving? We're trying to get them out.
Doesn't this look like Sim City or something?
Yeah.
There's nothing moving because there's cars blocking, but I think if we pull a few patrol cars up here, it'll probably get these people moving along. Oh, there's just probably 1,000 or 2 people right here at Lisbon and Stone. So I think if we pull a couple patrol cars up here with the lights on, it'll start making people move.
So this is in DeLand, Florida, which is just north of your favorite city in Florida? Orlando. And the cops had to go break up this gathering of people. And they were all black people, so there's this racial element to it. But they're trying to say it had nothing to do with race. This just had to do with us. I don't know the laws in Florida, and I don't know that the laws, we've seen these debates of police officers saying, do we have the right to hold up these laws that may not be constitutional? There's a lot of layers to all this. But the police show up, they tell all of these people you can't be hanging around. If you watch the video in the description, it's a long video, a lot of helicopter footage and a lot of police cam footage. They're very reasonable, I think. They say, we're going to make you shut down at 10 p.m. So
they don't break it up immediately.
They start to like show up and, you know, control the amount of people coming in and out. But they say at 10 o'clock, tell the DJs, tell all the people playing the music and stuff, like, we're shutting this down at 10, you need to leave. Which seems very reasonable.
How much time did they have?
Maybe it was like 7 or 8 o'clock. So the sun, sun was starting to set.
So they gave them hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least that's what it looks like from the timestamps. But then as the police start coming in at 10 o'clock and telling people you need to leave, it just turns crazy. Like it gets into a situation.
Oh, really?
And I'm worried that, you know, there's always these cases like this, but this could be signs of things to come if people really start saying, we are not going to stay home. Like, we're going to congregate, you know? And the irony in all of this is it doesn't seem like anybody's wearing masks. The police officers aren't wearing masks. None of the party goers are wearing masks. But as you'll see in this next video, things escalate quite a bit.
They go awry?
You're out there doing your job, you need to get support from the community, black, white, brown, or yellow. Doesn't matter what color or what happened out there. It was wrong.
Sheriff Mike Chitwood says a moving block party was peaceful enough in the early going. Law enforcement kept an eye out but steered clear, even though the event was not permitted.
Get out of the road! Get out of the road!
As darkness set in, however, officials say vehicles blocked roads. Pedestrian safety became a concern. And officials say a small number of partygoers suddenly turned violent.
You had 5% that was out there inciting a riot, carrying firearms, selling drugs.
The thing that initially started was a deputy got a rifle pointed at him. And that's when I think the whole dynamic changed.
Get back! You got a gun! Get back!
Law enforcement put out an all-county call for backup. Items, including chairs and bottles, were thrown at officers, deputies, their vehicles.
I've been hit in the head with a beer bottle. I've had a rifle flagged at me.
The police response elicited allegations of racism from some in the crowd. Officials say, though, it was sheer numbers, illegal weapons, attacks on officers and deputies that forced their hands.
And it became absolutely impossible to control.
As partygoers moved to other areas, including a gas station, police say there was more trouble.
Employees there became fearful for their lives, hitting the panic buttons on their businesses as people were brandishing firearms.
Oh my gosh.
If you watch the full videos, it's like people are getting confronted and they're throwing guns into the woods, and then the cops are chasing after them and tasing them. Like, it's crazy stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And then their girlfriends are getting mad at them and run up to the cops and they handcuff them, and it just turns into like insanity.
I mean, people got all this pent up energy from staying inside for so long. We're ready to party.
We're ready to party. I mean, that's Florida, and Florida is like its own country in some ways. But, you know, I could see the same sort of stuff happening, not with just, you know, that race, but like all different types of groups of people. You do this in a redneck area, and I could see that happening too.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, we're at the calm before the storm. We're starting to open up. People are feeling like, oh, I'm allowed some of my freedoms. And I don't even know if what they were doing was really that wrong. Like, again, I don't know what laws were instilled in that county and in that township.
Right.
But if we have a second wave and you start telling everybody, like, you have to go back to being, I mean, we're quarantine day, like, 64, 65 here in Puerto Rico. And there's pictures and videos going around of our governor going to parties, taking her elderly mother to parties. There's a lot of people here in Puerto Rico who are saying, why am I locked down in my house when the governor is going to these fancy parties and pictures are sneaking out? I just worry that stuff like this could be more commonplace in America as it's the us versus them mentality, you know? And unfortunately, I like police officers for the most part. I feel like they're kind of stuck in the middle. Just like that guy we showed from Seattle who got fired for not taking his video down on his, amendments, constitutional rights thing. I could see where a lot of police officers are kind of placed in the middle.
Yeah.
I have to do my job, but I don't think it's really right to do this. But there should be a line somewhere, maybe. Maybe a congregation like that is out of hand. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of videos like this coming out over the next year. Next video.
Pier 1 is now on the verge of completely shutting down 3 months after filing for bankruptcy. The 58-year-old company asked the bankruptcy court to cease its retail operations as soon as reasonably possible, blaming temporary store closures caused by coronavirus. The company says it looked into alternatives but determined liquidation is the best option given the current circumstances. Pier 1 plans to sell its remaining inventory, website, and intellectual property. Orders already placed will be fulfilled. Katie Johnston for CBS Local News.
So I looked up Pier 1 import stock earlier today just to see, because my fear this is how naive I am as an investor. I'm thinking like, man, do I own stocks and companies that could just declare bankruptcy and like poof, like that investment's gone? JCPenney's doesn't have this fall off. They just recently declared bankruptcy. But Pier 1 did. Back on, I think, February 19th, they have a sharp decline. And I was on my phone, and so I couldn't see what news stories came out February 19th because I can't sort by date. But Pier 1 dropped off, and then it's been going down, and then it drops off again. But we keep saying,
Do you know what percentage of losses they're at?
Most of these companies, it seems like 85%, which is a pretty big number. The company my sister used to work for, Benefit Focus in Charleston, their stock's down like 85%. I don't know, they're on the brink of bankruptcy. Like, I don't know if that always equates to that, but it just made me think, like, a lot of stocks corrected 30 or 40% a 2 months ago. At what point could somebody declare bankruptcy? I mean, a lot of the airlines, people are throwing money into these airlines and these cruise companies thinking, like, I'm going to buy the dip. But at what point can they say, hey, we're bankrupt, and you lose all of those positions?
Not sure. I don't fully understand the differences between different types of bankruptcy and what can happen. I remember when Kodak was going bankrupt, I was like, I'm going to buy some Kodak stock because Kodak's brand name is so big, like they can't die. Well, they went bankrupt.
Yep.
My stock went to zero, and then it came back online, still as Kodak, but I didn't own it anymore. So I obviously didn't understand how that worked.
We need to look into that. It's like when you restructure and you do chapter 7 and then 11, or maybe it's 11, and that's the restructuring one, and then chapter 7, you're totally done. But yeah, Kodak was the first stock I ever bought, and poof, gone.
Milcom says there's not going to be a second wave in the United States because the first is never going to end. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I could see us just remaining pretty consistent for a while, but you also have to consider that we have been, for the most part, locked down for a couple of months now, and everybody's getting let out now, and it seems like symptoms start showing up in a week or two. So I think in a week or two from now, we will see if there's going to be a second wave just from people coming out. And then it seems like a lot of people on TV are more afraid of a second wave in the winter time.
Yeah.
Similar to the Spanish flu, that could be like a mutated strain or something that's much more deadly.
Or it could just be, the change of people's habits when it starts to cool down, or maybe it's, I guess in 1918 we didn't have football season, but football comes back and everybody goes, colleges start back up, those could be an issue. I've been seeing a lot of articles where some colleges are already saying we're just going to do next year online. But then I've seen other colleges say we are definitely going to school starting next fall. So it's like colleges are starting to take completely, I feel like it's way too early to make that decision. No college can definitively say, hey, we're definitely having our campus back open.
Logan has really important news. He says there are 2 women that have COVID-19 linked to 1 cup not properly being washed at a newly reopened restaurant. Google 2 girls, 1 cup for the video.
So 2 girls shared 1 cup, like a drink, and then they got COVID?
They shared the cup.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that one
Yeah,
tonight.
we'll look into that right after we get off camera here. And 420 Tendy says, Patrick and Lee don't know how to make tendies. That's true. We have definitely made some poor investments in the past. And,
Touche Film says, discuss the Puerto Rico statehood vote. Is that still happening? Is there another push?
I don't know much about that, but I think the mayor has some new push or bill or something that she wants us to become a 51st state. And it's very polarizing because I think in some ways it could be great. Maybe in most ways it could be great. But Puerto Ricans are not accustomed to paying federal income tax. But the taxes in Puerto Rico are extremely high already. And I just assume the majority of people here do not pay taxes, like illegally. They are just, everyone's paid under the table.
Oh, I see.
Everybody's on unemployment. And so I think that's why the taxes here are so high. And so
yeah, I think we're already one of the highest taxed places locally. Like you could compare Puerto Rico to like California in terms of the.
Oh, I think it's much more.
It's worse than that?
Yeah, I think Puerto Rican tax rates are very similar to federal tax rates. But they would just have to completely restructure if all of a sudden the federal government said, okay, everybody has to pay 30% taxes or whatever, and people are accustomed to paying nothing.
Well, a lot of people here in Puerto Rico would make such little money that they would still fall under the smallest tax bracket.
Yeah, you might be right.
For the federal government. But I think historically, and I could be way wrong, I don't want to be this like gringo who doesn't know his history of Puerto Rico, but I think the overwhelming majority of people that vote for statehood. But when you look at the number of people on the island that go and vote, it's like a very small percentage of people actually vote. So everyone that is voting is saying we want to be a state, but that might only be 10% of the population that went and voted. I think it's something like that. Maybe I have it backwards.
I don't know what you're talking about right now. I mean, what is this vote? Doesn't the United States have to vote?
Well, that's the irony of all of this. The only way Puerto Rico can become a state is if, I don't know the number, it's like 2/3 or 80% of the Senate or the House or both vote Puerto Rico to become a state. It's a very difficult proposition, and the way our country's polarized now, Puerto Rico in some ways is very conservative. It's like very Catholic, it's very religious, but I think socially it's very liberal here. So both parties are trying to figure out, well, which way would Puerto Rico go? Because they would be able to swing votes. It seems like there's no chance Puerto Rico will become a state, from the government's, from the United States point of view. But here locally, and I don't know what Touche Films is talking about, but the Puerto Rican statehood vote, if it was done here in Puerto Rico, which they do they've done it several times in the last 10 or 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
When they vote here, what do the people want here? I think most people want to become a state, but most people don't vote.
I just don't know that their vote even matters.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. But it's like you would still like to know, if Congress said you could be a state, do you want to be a state? And you found out Puerto Ricans didn't want to be a state.
Right.
Then, I mean, but we saw that when we went to Hawaii. There's a lot of locals in Hawaii that do not really completely align themselves with the United States.
Yeah.
They almost feel like they're their own people, and we have been our own culture for so long. I think they even have their own flag. There was this vibe of we are Americans, but we don't trust America. We don't trust the government. And there's probably a name for Native Hawaiians, but in many ways they almost relate more to South Pacific Islanders and stuff.
Next video, Facebook.
Kelly, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg just announcing Facebook Shops. This is a new tool for small businesses and a big push into e-commerce. Now, this new tool will enable businesses to set up a storefront for free to sell products across Facebook and Instagram. Users will be able to complete a purchase on their own sites or on the Facebook platform, and Facebook's making it easy to shop from live videos. You see Facebook shares now up 2.5% at session highs. Take a look at Shopify. Those shares falling on this news. Etsy also giving up earlier gains, now just up fractionally. Now, Facebook will charge a small transaction fee for purchases on its platform, but the real opportunity for Facebook here is driving ad revenue from these businesses. Now, Facebook does rely on small businesses. They are the vast majority of its 8 million advertisers, and they do deliver the majority of its ad revenue. Guys, back over to you.
Interesting.
So Facebook is now, it feels like, competing with Etsy and Amazon potentially. Like, they're not necessarily having inventory held. I don't think Etsy does, but Amazon surely does.
It's more like a Shopify competitor.
And Shopify's stock bombed. Well, I don't want to say it bombed, but it dropped a good 4 or 5% today when that announcement was made. But then I was confused because I saw Shopify's Twitter tweeted out that we have partnered with Facebook. And once Facebook announced that they're teaming up with Shopify, I think Shopify stock went back up or rebounded. So there's like a partnership there. A lot of people were speculating that this would be bad news for Shopify, but somehow they're integrated a little bit more. But I just feel like, again, I've been saying this since the beginning, these companies like Amazon, which just hit their all-time high today. Amazon stock is the highest it's ever been. And companies like Facebook, I believe, has a ways to go, but they're going to come out as the big winners in all of this. The richer and the bigger companies are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and I feel like a lot of these small companies are going to be the ones that collapse and go bankrupt.
Well, Callan has another very important news update. He says Newsom said in a live stream update earlier that COVID-19 can be spread by lemons too. I feel bad for everyone having to cancel their lemon parties. I feel like I'm back in college again. These are all the horrific imagery and videos I saw back in college. Do not
I don't know if
Google
I know
these things.
What's the lemon party?
Oh, just pull it up on your iPad while I watch the next video here.
NASCAR apparently is going back online on Sunday, I think, at Darlington, maybe. Yep. I know you're a NASCAR fan. Do you think other professional sports will soon come back? Should they?
Yeah, it sounds like they are. I mean, the holdup in baseball sounds more about the money side of it. But, you know, the NFL, I think they will. And, you know, I've had my differences with Roger Goodell, even though, I don't know if you heard, I am going to spend a Monday night football in his basement with him. But, you know, he'll
He's
come
submitting.
back.
Yeah.
Roger Goodell, he doesn't care about anything. He may be the guy that gets it back in the streets.
Huh. Well, that's probably good news. And finally, like, what's your plan now? You've been holed up. You've expressed your frustration. You think the policies are stupid, which they are. How are you going to live going forward?
I mean, again, this isn't, the crazy thing is, this isn't about me personally. Bars will be fine. I feel bad walking around the city and all these restaurants that you're starting to see, you know, signs that say we're not coming back. And the crazy thing is, if you go for a walk on the Hudson River, like today when it's 75, there's tons of people outside. So the policies aren't necessarily even keeping people inside. It's just keeping businesses closed. And by the way, if Florida's open and New York's closed, guess what? I'm going to Florida. And then I'm coming back to New York, and lots of people are going to do that. So the whole thing isn't going to work. The policies are flawed regardless of how you look at it, if not everyone's working together.
He speaks truths. He speaks truths. It's that peeing section of the swimming pool.
I feel like if Seth Rogen and Morley, our friend, had like a kid, that would be that guy.
Yeah, I think
more
that's
Seth
accurate.
Rogen than Morley, but he's got the like raspy enthusiasm of Morley.
Yeah.
Well, somebody here, Fan May Who, and I saw him leaving comments yesterday that didn't quite make sense with me, but he's like, Patrick, make up your mind. Yesterday you said it was a great time to invest. Now what are you saying? I think he was saying something like this yesterday, and I don't believe I've been saying it's a good time to invest. I invested in Moderna And that was like a gamble, YOLO kind of bet.
Yeah.
And it paid off, but I'm sitting 50% in cash right now.
Yeah, I don't think you said that.
I definitely don't think it's a good time to invest. I could be wrong. Like, what do I know? But I don't feel confident that somebody was saying that, you know, we always talk about these dead cat bounces, and we just had the greatest decline in the stock market history. Perhaps you would also expect the highest dead cat bounce, and then it would go back down.
That's what I'm expecting. But
because so many other people said, well, you should expect it. We're going to have a V curve. I think our president's been saying that.
Of course he would say that.
And we went over to our doctor's friend's house, and we had a video that I shared, I believe, in one of the first episodes, where he compares all of the declines of like 20% and less, and they took 12 months, 18 months to recover. But any decline more than 20%, 20 to 40%, 50, 80%, it took the average of like 2 or 3 years to recover. And so this would be breaking that rule. Maybe that's happened 4 or 5 times in the last decade, last century. So to have it drop 40% and then do a V curve all the way back up in 2 months.
When nothing has changed. It's really worse news than it was a couple of months ago. The only good news that we have right now is maybe this Moderna thing. But other than that, what's the good news? Like, oh, all the death numbers and all the infection numbers are the same as they were a month ago, but we're just being let out into it now? That doesn't seem like good news.
I mean, the numbers are worse. Every day, we're not at the peak that we were at, but if you take any one day and add it up to the previous day, or add it up per week, those numbers are I mean, how many people pull up the numbers? Are we having 9/11 deaths every day?
How many people died on 9/11?
Like 3,000, something like that? How many deaths per day are we having?
So, no, we're not at 3,000 a day. I think we hit 3,000 once.
We're at 1,000 a day.
Yeah.
So still, every week, we are having 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 deaths every week.
Yeah.
10,000 deaths every week. And then you compare where the market crashed back on, was it like March? When did the market crash? Was it March 10th? Was it February? Was it right around?
It's like it crashed down here where you can't even see the numbers. They're
I think
so
I
small.
flew back from Miami around the 10th, 11th, somewhere around there. But yeah, the second week in March, I believe, is when it crashed. And, you know, we had 100 deaths total. Now we have 10,000 deaths a week. So in no way are we in a better place.
I know. It's worse.
It's worse.
So I'm not putting my money in anytime soon. That wraps up all of the videos for today. Someone did send me an email, and I'm sorry I don't have his name, but he made some fan art for us that I thought was fantastic.
This is really good.
So, as you can tell, I am this creepy murderer-looking guy here. Patrick, I don't know what you look like.
I love the whiteness in my 5 o'clock shadow. Like, that's perfect. I hope I've filled that in a little bit living in Puerto Rico, but typically it does look like that.
David, this looks just like David, but a much older version. And then this is Mike Kelly. I'm a little upset that Pi didn't make this, but Mike Kelly saw this. I sent it to everybody, and he was like, oh my gosh, he got our personalities perfect. And then I said, but Mike, you look like a peeping Tom who has just been caught peeping.
He does look super
And he was
creepy.
like, yeah, I guess I do look like that. So Mike thinks that captured his personality perfectly.
You kind of look like a Joe Rogan or something. Like a Joe Rogan with like a transvestite lip face. You know, your mouth looks like you're the Joker or something.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing that.
JS? Who is the guy who did this?
Like I said, I don't have his name.
I
can
would
pull
love
it up real quick.
to continue the series. We need Elia Licardi, and we need Pi Jerza for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. His name is Jack Stollery. Stollery. He's an artist and an animator from the UK. So thank you so much. That brought us a lot of joy and a lot of laughs today. Anything else you want to talk about, Pat?
We still have some time. We haven't done an hour. Do
Well,
you want to talk at all about... Let me see if I have any other notes. I have a topic we could talk about, but I feel like it's opening a can of worms.
Oh, boy.
And I don't know that we want to do that. I can put a link in the description. I've been talking about this podcast that I've been listening to, and it is called, Macro Voices. And I don't have the name of the guy. I could pull it up, but he basically, there's a 25-minute conversation about art as an investment. And I thought it was really interesting because the owner of the interviewer of this podcast is like, people always talk about fine art and collectibles as being an asset class that you can invest in, but most of us have no idea what that is, and I don't feel comfortable ever investing in art. So tell us a little bit about what your company does. And his company, he was basically saying, I have some notes written down here, he says the top 100 artists, and I think this is paintings, is what he's really talking about, the top 100 paintings make an average return of 8% per year for the last 20 or 30 years. And in many cases, art has outperformed the S&P 500 for years now. He's saying that art is really correlated. It's not correlated to the stock market. It's not inversely correlated. It's not like gold or anything where you follow these trends. If the market collapses, maybe fine art would do really well. And he's saying
it would drop too.
The people that are investing in fine art are the uber ultra rich, where they can buy a $4 million painting and it's not a big deal to them at all.
Right.
It's people who are willing to spend 4% of their net worth on a painting. And maybe some of these paintings are 500,000, maybe they're $1 million to multi-millions. So we're talking about people who have $100 million or more are buying all of this art. Maybe it's also sculptures and stuff. He didn't really get into exactly what it is. But he said some interesting ideas on it. He was like, liquidity is probably the weakness. The second that you own like a Van Gogh painting, it's very hard to move that. It's not the sort of thing that like you need the perfect buyer.
Well, the other difficult thing is that to sell it, you usually have to put it in one of these high-end auction houses that takes a massive percentage.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as simple as, oh, I'm just going to spend $1 million and then sell it for $2 million in a few years from now. You could sell it for $2 million, but I don't know what percentage they take, but I think they might take 30%.
He didn't talk about that. He said 50% of all of this is sold in auction houses like Christie's and those sort of things. And then the other 50% are sold in galleries where you just put it in a gallery and then they would sell it. But
well, most galleries charge 50%.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know about at that level.
So I wonder then, because unfortunately the host of this show didn't really press him on any of this, but I wonder if you're able to make 8% per year, is that including the loss that you're going to have when you have to split 50% of the profit?
It can't be.
When you sell it? So that means it's appreciating much more than that if you were still able to pay 50% to an auction house and have 8% gains.
I wouldn't imagine you can still have the 8% gains, but I don't know. My uncle was telling me the same thing. He was like, Lee, you got to save your money, get to the point where, maybe you got $1 million or $2 million saved, and then buy investment art. That is where the money's at.
Really?
He was telling me this years ago, yeah.
Well, what this company does is he kind of has created, similar to the boat thing that we're doing, except the boat's never going to be worth more.
Yeah.
But this company, and I can't remember the name of the company again, I'll put the link in the description if you are, I sent it to Mike Kelly, because I know he's in the art world, in the photography art world. There was basically 3 classes. He's like, you have the people who have been dead and gone, but their art is the classics. You have people that are at the end of their career but still alive and their art is doing well. This might be people like Banksy. Like if you bought a Banksy, would that be a good return down the road? And then you have the up-and-coming people, new artists that haven't really made a name yet. And he was like, we don't deal with those people at all because it's just a gamble. It's kind of like betting on a penny stock or a new upstart tech company and you have no idea if they're going to make it. But he was like, the classics and the guys that have made a name for themselves, it's pretty reliable. They almost relate in the same way. But what they were doing was he would buy this, his company buys this art. So he would buy a painting for $2 million, and then he makes an LLC out of it. And then somehow through the SEC, you can then sell that almost as like a ETF. And so multiple people can go in and buy it.
Okay.
And the guy was like, well, what do you do with this painting? And he's like, almost all of them just sit in storage. Like, not one person can take it. You might be able to put it in a museum or something so that the public can enjoy it. But then the question was, well, how do you sell this stuff? And he's like, we act as the brokers, and when we feel like there's a moment that the price has gone up the most, maybe like there's a movie that comes out on this artist, or they do a huge gallery opening that tours the country.
Wow.
And it's like, this is the big moment for this thing. It's like, or, you know, I think of like guitars. I've been very tempted to buy a classic guitar. Like,
I was looking into that the other day. I was
like
on
50s or like from 1954 to 1962 Stratocasters.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, this is like a $10,000 to $50,000 guitar.
Yeah.
And but you know, when Eric Clapton or Jimmy Page or any of these people, I know who was the guy who just sold a bunch of guitars? David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. They sell these guitars, or they release something, and then they say, we're going to auction all of this off. You would say, man, if I own any guitar from that guy, even if it's one of the crappy ones that he held once, you would say this is the time to try to sell it because it's this big push. And so they kind of act as the broker. They take a predetermined rate. I think they charge 1% a year to hold the art, but then they might take like a 5 or 10% of the gains, the profits. But then if you're saying if you have to go through the auction house and they're going to take 50%, it just feels like the percentages aren't adding up now.
No, it sounds like they're not going through the auction house. They're big enough they can sell it themselves. But you know, the dream is buying something that's going to appreciate in value that you can still enjoy for years while it's appreciating.
Yeah.
And I just feel like so much of art is a scam. I don't care about putting some ugly painting on my wall if it's $1 million, but having, you know, a Beatles original guitar or something, that could be cool.
Yeah.
That would be really awesome, and you could sit on it and you'd enjoy it. It'd be a, you know, talking piece in your house, and then you sell it 20 years from now for triple the price or whatever. That'd be exciting.
Well, a Beatles guitar, that's going to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I was on Reverb the other day. I just started looking into it.
Dangerous website to be on.
Yeah, and I started looking at classic Martin acoustic guitars, and they're like hundreds of thousands of dollars for these guitars that are all beat up and stuff. It's crazy.
Well, in LA, there's a place called Norman's Guitars, and they have a bunch of stuff on YouTube. People always go in there. You can watch all these great videos. But I was watching this one guitar player, and he goes and plays. He's from England, I believe. Flies all the way over here. He goes there. He wants to play these old Strats and Martins. And the guy, Norm, is pulling out these Martins, and it's like, this is a 1918. And you're thinking, that's a guitar that went through the pandemic, you know? And it's like, I forget the price of it, but it's so old and everything. But the interesting thing he brought up, and somebody just mentioned this here about stamps, is that guitars are physical pieces of wood that, like, you could play. And, I mean, I don't know that I would play a guitar like that because it's worth so much, and any little ding and scratch that you put in it is just depreciating the value to some degree.
Maybe, but a lot of these guitars are all dinged up anyway when they're that old.
But Norm brings up, he's like, you know, if you collect baseball cards or stamps, I mean, those things, if they're not in the right temperature or sunlight hits them, like, they are very fragile.
Yeah.
Where a guitar, and I assume even a painting, like, I know paintings, they like to put them in areas where no direct sunlight hits, but a painting feels way more physical than a little stamp that's
Maybe
super
so.
thin, you know?
Yeah. That would be lame. If you were like, I've saved up $250,000 and I'm buying this stamp and I'm going to sit on it for 10 years and hope I can make a profit, and then you just have this stamp in your house. That would be the lamest of all collections.
The advantage with stamps and baseball cards, though, is you could hide those in a place where nobody knows. My worry is always, what happens when you own a $50,000 guitar? I'm going to want to display it and have it hanging, and it's like there. It's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I never get on the ladder and pull it down,
Yeah.
or only on special occasions.
Yeah.
But it's like if your house burns down, if somebody robs your house, you know.
You got to have an insurance policy just on that, probably.
And I don't know enough about that. Like your dad, you did, our top video any day now is the video where you gave your dad a dream car. Is that car worth enough to where you need some kind of like valuable collector's insurance?
So the interesting thing about collector cars is that the car insurance that he got for that was significantly cheaper than his normal car insurance for his other cars that are worth a fraction of that car, because they know you're never going to drive it and you're going to baby it. So it was incredibly affordable. I thought it was going to be super expensive because you know, the car I gave him, a 68 Camaro, is certainly repairable and replaceable. And maybe if you got up to one of these cars that's worth $1 million, maybe at that point the cost goes crazy. But his car, you know, is probably worth like 40, 50 grand. I'm trying to remember how much it cost, but I thought it was like 25 or 50 bucks a month to insure it, something like that. I thought.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
People are saying the Holy Grail is a mint 1959 Les Paul. I know.
What does Les Paul mean? Is that an electric
brand.
guitar?
Yeah.
Is that a? It's not.
So Les Paul's the guitar player, inventor who came up with the first real commercialized electric guitar.
Okay.
And he was playing in big bands. There's like a whole history that's pretty cool about it. But then Gibson at the time had their guitars, and they were competing with Fender. And they said, if we get a sponsorship on a guitar, we can compete with Fender, who's winning the race right now. So they came out with the Gibson Les Paul, which is like one of two. It's like the Stratocaster and Les Paul. So when you think of Jimmy Page and Slash and like all those classic guitar players, they have that one guitar. But a 1959 one is like, I think these things are like $500,000.
Save your money.
I know David Bergman, he shoots with Bon Jovi, and their guitar player, Richie Sambora, has one, and he was like, he trapped like the private jet, that guitar goes with him. Like he will bring it on tour, which is crazy. But he keeps, it's because it's $500,000 for a guitar. And there's a few people that have them, and it's just like insanity. But I always thought that would be really cool. I don't think I'm anywhere near that stage yet, but man, I've been talking with Mike, and we're like, man, if the market crashes, I don't know if the collectibles will drop. This guy was arguing that they won't. They're not correlated. Maybe everybody who's got some money is like, man, second the market drops, I'm buying that 59 Les Paul, but because they're not really affected as much.
Yeah.
I don't want to buy anything like that. I just want to buy something that I might want that's like, oh, it's now 30% off because some baby boomer who's retired, his wife's like, honey, you got to get rid of that. We don't have room for it, and then you get a good deal. But I don't know if that's actually going to happen.
See, I think I told you this in a video a month or two ago, but I've always thought about jumping into the classic car game, and you get a nice car for $150,000 at the bottom, like when you're in the middle of a depression, and then you take that car out, you know, on weekends, and you just ride it back up, and it's worth 300 grand in a couple years from now. When you look at some of these cars, I'm trying to remember the is it the McLaren F1? I think it was that car. There are these videos on YouTube of people who own these cars, and they were like, I can't afford the maintenance on these cars. I have to sell it because the maintenance costs like 50 grand anytime somebody comes over to look at the car. It's 50 grand every time. And then they're like, it was the worst financial decision of my life because the car appreciated like millions of dollars in value after I sold it. I should have just sat on it and not repaired it, just like put it in a garage somewhere. I just don't have a garage to put any of these cars. In Charleston, my house is right on the water. It floods all the time. Here, it's open air.
That's the problem with stuff like that is classic cars, you need a place to store those, and you need a badass house, and that costs money. Like that's a super expensive thing. Somebody in here was mentioning why not collect like classic prints, and I could see that being really cool if you had a real Ansel Adams or some.
I just don't care about that. Like I don't.
Yeah, that
having some mediocre black and white picture on my wall that everyone's gonna walk by and ignore,
assume that it's a
and then I have to be like, excuse me, you just passed $100,000 Ansel Adams. Like no one cares about that.
Yeah.
But if you had an awesome car that you loved and that you could drive, I don't know, maybe I'm just more of a car guy than I am.
What was we did a tutorial with Mike Kelly. I think it was the second WAMA, where art meets architecture, and we went to this house in Venice that. He had to shoot this place because it was like an old restaurant converted into the most expensive home in Venice Beach. And in that house, he had these huge prints of what's the photographer that has those big elephants?
I don't remember his name.
But I remember being in that room and saying, like, this is pretty impressive because those prints were huge. And I feel like that was really exciting. But
yeah, those prints were exciting. Somebody's giving me crap because I called Ansel Adams pictures mediocre. I think they are mediocre.
Oh boy.
I think that if you posted any of his unknown photos, there's a few that people would recognize, but if you posted any of his unknown photos on any forum, people would rate the images low and they'd be like, these don't look good and they look blurry, and like it was great for the time, but it's not. It's nothing that I would hang on the wall and just want to sit and stare at. But that's how I feel about almost all art. There's almost nothing that I want to spend a lot of money on.
But when you get into the collectible stuff, it's not about what it looks like. It's about who owned it and when did it come out. You know, if you own the 54 Strat, that's like the first year they made it. You know, if you own the 62 Strat, like that's the one that David Gilmour had. You know, when the neck changed over to being rosewood, like that's the year you want that. But if it's a print, you're right. Like you could look at the print and say, like, I mean, I see that with paintings all the time and illustrations and stuff. And I'm like, I think that looks gaudy and awful. Oh, it's gaudy. Like that's the guy, and you're like that's why it's a museum now, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about this, but this reminds me of the time that we tried to buy a house together.
Yeah. What does this have to do with art?
Well, we were just talking about buying assets in the Depression, in a recession, and then flipping them.
Okay.
And we tried to buy a house together back when we didn't have enough money to buy a house on our own, and the house was 50% off. And it was it was a short sale.
Yep.
The homeowner was going bankrupt. He was foreclosing on the house. The bank was about to repossess it. And they were like, fire burner sale, anything we can do to get this thing out the door so this guy doesn't have a foreclosure and the bank doesn't have to repossess it. And we put a short sale on it together, and it was like kind of like a house that we're in now, where it was 3 or 4 stories. Looking back, it would have been much more cramped living together. I think we were even going to have a roommate. We're going to have like 3 people living in there. And what exactly happened?
It went up for auction without us being told.
Our realtor kept saying it's going up for auction, and I've had to tell the bank that owns it that it's not able.
It shouldn't go up for auction.
There's a contract. There's a
yeah.
short contract on it. And so he canceled that 2 or 3 times, and then he was like, I have bad news for you guys. The house went up for auction in Charleston, and it sold. And they just totally ignored your short sale offer. And the worst part is it sold at auction for $10,000 less than the opening bid that you put on it. And we were like, what? And now that house is...
It's probably worth like 1.3 million.
Yeah, it's doubled its value.
More, because I think we tried to buy it for around 500.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's when you can save money and be ready when something like that comes around. You just see that and you know, like, oh my gosh, this is a deal of a lifetime. Now, luckily, we were heartbroken when we didn't get that, but then we ended up finding separate homes that we liked, not as much as that one, but
yeah, and our houses have doubled in value, but they didn't double like that house did.
No, that house almost tripled.
But we would have had to split the profit in that doubling. So
yeah.
I guess in a way,
and we would have had to live together. So.
Yeah, but we literally could have flipped that house probably in 2 or 3 years. We could have lived in it long enough to where there's a way not to pay taxes on capital gains if it's your primary home.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
I think it's like 2 or 3 years out of 5 years.
I think just 2.
2 years.
2 years, yeah.
And we could have sold that, moved into. But we would have never found the next house because maybe by that time, the market in Charleston flipped quick. It's like everybody started buying houses and then flipping them, like gutting them and remaking them. And then they were selling these houses. They buy houses for $90,000 that were crap. Probably had termites and stuff in them. And then they'd sell them for $500,000 a couple of years later. And you're like, what? Houses downtown Charleston are $500,000 now?
Yeah. I'm interested to see what happens to the Puerto Rican real estate here, just because the market's so crazy here in Puerto Rico.
I feel like it has the potential to be so volatile.
Yes. Yeah, it's scary, but that's also how you make the most money. You know, you're taking the biggest risk, but you could also lose everything as well. I think that we should end this episode. However, for anybody interested, I joined the Touche Films' Zoom meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
And somebody in that meeting was like, hey, Lee, just so you know, you can use your Ada Mini as a webcam. And so you can join Zoom calls with this setup that we've already built. So I worked on that today. I got it working. So if anybody is interested, I'm going to post a link right here in the chat to a Zoom meeting. Uh-oh. Looks like I literally posted that at the exact same moment as Touche Films. So if mine doesn't show up, just damn it.
What happened?
Like, I posted a link right as Touche Films was doing one as well.
What's the problem with that? Is one different?
Yes, I made one and he made one.
Oh, you made one. I thought you said you posted his.
Do not go to mine. Do not go to mine. Go to Touche Films as one. Let's see.
This guy said, I don't know if you'll get it, but he said he held his Venom #1 for decades, and it's all worth like $20 now.
Venom #1.
Yeah, like you ever collect comic books? I had like all of the Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane. I had like #1, and one had like 6 different covers. I had all 6 of them up until he left, and then did Spawn. He started doing the Spawn comics, and then I had all the Spawns.
Yep.
I think you can go on eBay right now and buy either of those series, Spider-Man 1 through 30 or Spawn.
Yeah.
And it's like $20, 30, 40, maybe it's like $50, but you get 30 comic books. I'm like, it's not a good investment, but the guy behind the counter sure told me it was.
Yeah, I definitely, I've got some Marvel Masterpiece cards, full collection myself.
Yeah, unopened or?
No, they're open and they're in
Oh,
order.
you got to have the box with the sealed packages in the box.
But then how would you know if you have the full collection?
Oh, it's about having an unopened box. You remember when Superman died?
Yes.
There was like a big one where you had to have the sealed. Like I had to buy 2 because I had to open it to see what was in it, and then I had to have the pristine one that was.
How much was that?
I think I bought it for like. My mom got it for me for my birthday. It was like $50 or $75 for one comic.
Wow.
That now it's probably like she probably moved them all to the attic and the plastic's like melted into the. But they had a trading card series that came out when Superman died, and that was the one to have. If you had an unopened box of that, it was like $400 or $500.
That's where it's at, huh? All right. Well, everybody who wants to join, click on Touche Films' Zoom link. We're going to end this show right now, but we will see you over there, and we can talk in real life.
Death of Superman in the poly bag.
There you go.
James knows what I'm talking about.
Night, everybody.